1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I really don't need to count up on the second segment. I think I'm just anyway. Welcome back to the TMCJ podcast. We're now on segment 2, media. I definitely have a ton to talk about in this segment.
Oh, hell yeah.
But you sounded like you wanted to talk a little bit more about.
Yes, from segment 1.
Yeah.
Sorry if you're listening to this 2 days later and you might have forgotten what we were talking about at the end of the last section. But to recap, it was on a game called Detroit Become Human, where it's a social politics between androids and humans. The topic I wanted to bring up is a British TV series that came out a couple of years before Detroit Become Human. And from the plot points that Kaiser has described, because I haven't played the game, very, very similar plot to the TV series. This TV series, when it was first advertised, it was advertised in the respect of it didn't look like a TV show. They advertised it like it wasn't, like androids were becoming an actual product in real life. I don't know if I can't bring I don't know, maybe Kaiser can link a video to it somewhere. But yes, the adverts for it originally when it came out were very realistic looking. They were the whole premise is that humanity has come up with these androids that help in day-to-day life in all forms. So there was a few main characters, much like in the game. One was a android that helps out around the house, and so it moves in with his family. And eventually it ends up that there's a whole bunch of drama between the humans and the robots, because some of the robots start getting sentience, they start having emotions, they start not liking their lives in some respect. And this one that's lived with a family, I think, ran off with their youngest child, which was very similar to what Kaiser was talking about.
Yeah.
I don't think the child ended up being a robot, but yeah, there was that. Another main character that we follow, and this is a big old spoiler for the series, so if you are going to watch it, skip ahead a little bit. It's these two human detectives who go out and track down androids that have been faulty, and they're really nice characters. It's a very good dynamic. Anyway, after I think the first season or something, it turns out that one of the detectives is in fact a robot as well.
Oh my god.
Which is again very similar to what Kaiser was talking about on one of the characters.
It sounds like whoever made this, the guy that made this video game, was copying someone's homework.
Right? This is why I was like, oh my god. And the third scenario is very different. The third scenario is and this is going to be a slightly, I'm not going to go into any detail, pretty gruesome and a little bit shocking. The third robot in this case was a prostitute, and she's like the first one to snap because she's fed up with humans being really quite horrible to her. And there ends up being this movement with the robots, and I think you're meant to kind of side with the robots because they're essentially the ones who are being used in the first place. But I mean, they're robots, so it's kind of how mankind's always done things. A toaster is a toaster; it's got a function. And there ends up being this virus kind of thing.
Oh god, it really is
Where-
the same plot.
Exactly, where their sentience to be transferred to another robot by a simple data download. Exactly the same as
Oh my
yeah.
god.
So it was a really good series, very good. I recommend it. I've been saying that a lot this podcast, but I think we've only been talking about really good movies and
I mean,
games so far.
considering segment 3 last time was just a rant about things that annoyed us, like we need to bring some
Yeah,
positivity out into the world.
it's well, I mean, positivity. We're talking about things that are very dramatic and often sad in these
Well,
films and games, but
true.
that makes them a good game
Well,
or
exactly
film.
true, but not positivity in terms of like necessarily just a happy jolly old story, but
Hmm.
like
A
a
well
very
written,
like a well crafted piece of media.
precisely.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, a very realistic, quite chilling. I think they're still releasing more series to it. After the first series or two, I think it kind of dropped in popularity because I don't know, they started repeating things, and the drama's not so new anymore.
Well,
But
there's another series which I haven't seen that I think is it followed a similar plot line, and it's the one that I heard compared to Detroit Become Human quite a bit was Westworld.
oh yeah, I've seen the Critical Drinker review this, but I haven't actually seen it myself.
Yeah, I again I've yeah same with me. I heard a lot of good things, especially about the earlier seasons. I had coworkers that watched it, and they said great things about it. But similar plot line, an amusement park where they use robots to let humans live out like fantasies, like living in the Wild West, and they have
Hmm.
cowboy androids and stuff like that. And the androids essentially are either are or become sentient. I haven't seen the series, but from what I heard,
Hmm.
similar thing. They kind of start to pull some contrived plot points later in the series.
Yeah, they all seem to work for a business, and it's not you're not quite sure whether the business is on the human side or the robot side by the end of it.
But the one that you're talking about, that sounds significantly closer to the plot line of the game that I played.
It's called Humans. If you want to look it up.
Yeah, I took a note actually. You said to link it. I think I may actually link to the trailer that you were talking about.
Hmm. Yeah, it's quite revolutionary in terms of TV. But yeah, it's another movie that
Hmm.
we've watched very recently, which we both highly enjoyed, which is a rarity, I would say,
Yeah.
um, is Venom.
Yeah. For reference, talking about the newest Marvel
Is it
iteration of it.
Marvel? It is
Yeah.
Marvel.
Yeah, because it's a Spider-Man villain, so it has to be Marvel.
Oh yes,
But
without
yes,
any mention of Spider-Man.
yeah. Because the first iteration of Venom was in the original Spider-Man 3, where Spider-Man gets the black suit.
Yeah.
And in that iteration, Venom is just some dude that Peter Parker punched in the face. But this was a much better like version of him, I think.
Oh yeah, it was. It might have just been because they wrote the story quite so well in this one. I
Mm.
do definitely put this. He's got so much more personality and character in this. Probably because they left out the fact that he's meant to be a villain.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, they've kind of made him good, which is a bit.
Well, they didn't make him necessarily good. They made him more of an anti-hero. He still bites people's heads off a few times in the movie.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
definitely.
quick plot synopsis. Again, spoilers, so potentially skip ahead. But Venom, the plot of Venom. This guy who's a reporter, he's trying to look into like he's got this made a big name for himself going after people, exposing them for doing like evil corporate things. His girlfriend's a lawyer, and he gets a job to do an interview with this big name tech giant guy who made this big startup company. He's essentially think like SpaceX, but if SpaceX also had a pharmaceutical division. And he's building up these ships that can go to somewhere or something. I don't know. Spaceship goes out. What's really good? But this guy, he suspects something's off because their pharmaceutical wing has done some sketchy shit, and so he, a little bit unethically, sneaks onto his girlfriend's computer, finds some data, and then uses it to question the guy, and it ends up with him losing his job, losing his girlfriend because he used her to do that. She gets fired, and then dumps him. And at his kind of like absolute low, he is just wandering around dejected. He sees like horrible things happening all around him, and then he gets contacted by this one woman who works in the lab for this pharmaceutical guy, and it turns out that they brought aliens back, like some alien goo from their last space mission, and that alien goo, this guy thinks is the next stage in like human evolution, right? It's gonna help them, be able to travel the stars and be awesome. Anyway,
This is the bad guy, by the way, not the main character.
yeah, the bad guy, the guy who owns the pharmaceutical company. I don't remember any of their names. Sorry.
No.
The guy who played the good guy is named Tom Hardy, so I'm just gonna call the actor's name is Tom Hardy, so I'm just gonna call him Tom. Tom gets contacted by this pharmaceutical lab lady who sees all the bad shit happening, like they're doing human experiments, people are dying. Tells this guy about it, sneaks him into the lab so he can look around and try and figure out what's going on. He ends up getting like this goo attaches itself to him and goes into his body, and he starts having all these weird reactions to it. He's hungry all the time. He's like eating like a raw lobster and stuff like that. It turns out that this goo is sentient, and it's essentially like a symbiotic / parasitic organism that links itself up to him, and it starts talking to him and stuff. And this is where the movie starts to really get entertaining, in my opinion, is every time the goo has some hilarious things to say. But finishing up the synopsis, he gets the goo, him and the goo allows him to transform into this invulnerable like being, and him and the goo go off and try and stop this evil corporate guy who also has his own goo, which apparently wants to bring more goo monsters to the Earth and basically infect the whole planet or something like that, or take it over. Doesn't matter.
They want to eat all the humans, basically.
That's what it is. And they have a big apocalyptic like punch up at the end of the movie, and they prevail, and he gets to keep his goo, and the two of them are like sidekicks after that or something.
Yeah. To put it more simply, the main character gets Dwayne The Rock Johnson. If Dwayne The Rock Johnson was evil inside of him, and he's fighting.
Wait, hold on. The Rock voiced the goo?
No. But like super strong, funny, and because he's evil, he also wants to like eat people's heads.
Yeah,
but that kind of like super buff up thing.
Yeah, and they do make him like out to be an anti-hero. Like there's a point where there's a shoplifter, right? And he threatens the guy to get him to stop, and then he just kind of reconsiders, and then the goo eats him anyway.
Can you imagine if Venom was actually The Rock?
that would have been.
I would love that.
That would have been absolutely hilarious.
But no, some very cool action scenes.
Yeah, and some of some of the dialogue between the main dude Tom that Tom Hardy plays and the Venom goo.
Venom.
Venom. I don't know why I keep calling it the goo, but Venom. Between Venom and Tom Hardy, like they have some amazing character interactions in that movie.
Yeah, so much so that I burst out laughing during the fucking video because I'm very good at staying quiet, but there was such a funny moment that I lost it, and then Kaiser lost it.
Yeah, it was. So one of the very first things, like the Venom saves Tom Hardy, brings him out to like a platform, and this is when Tom Hardy first starts questioning him, and Venom just like pops out and like is facing him, and he just goes, "You're a loser, Tom," or whatever the character's name was, and that was one of the points we both laughed. And then he explains like, "I'm a loser too," or something like that, and then they were both.
Yeah, I didn't really get that part.
What I think the idea was that they kind of explain this a little bit. The goo that infests the pharmaceutical dude, the bad guy, that is like the commander of a mission sent to Earth to go there and eat people, right?
Yeah.
But what happens is, and Venom's just some like nobody on his crew, like a tech or something, essentially, somebody who has no authority, who's considered like a just a nobody on their mission.
Part of the forward attack party.
Well, that's the thing. He was like, so say the forward attack party is like a commander, 2 lieutenants, and like 3 foot soldiers. Venom was like the shittiest of the 3 foot soldiers.
But there were only 4 people.
No, there were
4 goos.
Right, I'm exaggerating the numbers, but That was the way they explained. I'm not saying it makes perfect
Okay.
sense, but that was how they explained it in the actual
Right.
movie.
Yeah. But no, what the part I was referring to was the elevator scene.
Yeah, where he calls him a pussy.
Yeah. So Venom wants to jump out of the top floor of a skyscraper, basically, and just get out of the building that
Yeah,
way.
and Tom
And it
Hardy's like,
cuts
"No, I'm gonna
to
take the
Tom
elevator,"
Hardy taking the elevator.
and you just
Uh,
hear Venom in the background, "Pussy."
yeah.
It's so
No,
good.
there were quite a few funny interactions between the two of them.
Yeah,
And I think that they are probably one of the best parts of the film, the interaction between this
yeah.
alien, down to earth human.
The movie has a lot of dark humor in it,
Yeah.
and it doesn't. Especially for like movies based out of like Marvel properties. Most of them are more
Mm.
lighthearted and a little bit more like even when they have their darker moments, they're not really that dark. This movie
Mm.
doesn't doesn't go that way. This movie just it starts off pretty dark and it stays there, but it has like moments of humor and levity built into it.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was as dark as The Punisher by any means. It was a lot less
Oh yeah,
visceral,
yeah, not
but
nearly that bad.
still, every time he like eats someone's head, it is a bit like, oh, okay, yep,
Yeah,
yep, that's what we're doing here.
yeah, that definitely just happened.
Yeah, the female Venom,
Yeah, what is it?
very mixed feelings on that. Like, very very cool. Don't get me wrong. But when he starts making out with the female Venom and then it turns into
Oh,
human, I was like,
yeah.
that starts as an alien. That's weird.
I don't know if this is coming through my mic, but I have my window open and I can somebody's shouting at somebody else out like I don't know if it's out one of the windows out here, but it's echoing down the canal. I don't think it's coming through the mic, but it's very distracting.
Okay.
Somebody's having a bit of a domestic dispute somewhere down the canal.
Oh dear.
Anyway, but
Uh,
yeah, no, the part you're referring to when Venom like infects his girlfriend to get back to him or something like that.
yeah.
Yeah, but overall, recommend the movie. It's pretty good, but be warned there
Oh, yeah.
is some some somewhat gruesome moments, and it is darker than your average Marvel kind of movie.
Yeah. That being said, I would love to see him alongside the other superhero. Like,
That it would be oh my
it'll
god.
never happen because he's too gritty. But
What
oh,
if only?
I
Yeah,
want to see more films with him in.
there was so this is actually a neat transition into one of the things I wanted to talk about, and that's the fact that I have been binge watching this.
Ollie.
What?
That's the main character's name, Ollie, because I remember it
Ollie.
from the very last scene after credits
Okay.
in the blood. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, so I wouldn't say binge watching, but I've been watching the Marvel movies in order. This started because we watched Venom, and then I was like thinking about the other movies that Marvel has put out, specifically
Mhm.
like the Marvel, quote unquote, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where they have all the movies interconnected. Because when I watched those movies, like I watched Iron Man 1, Iron Man 2, and then the next movie I watched was Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
And then I saw Infinity War and Endgame, but I didn't see any of the movies in between. So I've been watching all of them, and I will say two things. Actually, that's not true. I watched Civil War on an airplane, but so standout that I didn't think I would enjoy as much as I did was the Thor movies. I've watched the first two of those now, but the one I really want to talk about is Captain America: Civil War, which is a movie I had seen before, but I watched it again, and it reminded me why I disliked Captain America so much.
I've not seen it. I will say quickly on Captain America and Iron Man,
Mm-hmm.
they both had really good first films. And Iron Man, I would say his first film was about as gory as Venom was.
That's
Like
true.
he was
Yeah.
firing missiles and bullets at terrorists, and there was blood, and there was, I think, even a little bit of torture.
Oh yeah. Same thing with the Captain America first film. There's a scene where Captain America throws a guy back into a jet engine and he bursts into a cloud of blood.
Yeah, that's a bit more. I don't know. Maybe it's not.
I don't know.
It's less
That's
sensitive because it's instant, I think.
maybe, but I think but for you as it's instant for the guy
Hmm.
that got it, but for the audience, I think it's a little bit more shocking.
Yeah, I
But
mean
either
they
way,
brought up fucking Nazis in a Marvel film, so yeah, it's
so,
up there.
so now I've now seen the first two Captain America movies, and I kind of understand why people liked his character a little bit more, because
Right.
I first I only saw him in the Avengers films, and I saw him in Civil War when I saw that movie. So,
Mm.
but the Iron Man movies, I loved Iron Man 1. Loved it.
Yeah.
Iron Man 2, also very good movie. Didn't like it as much as the first one, but still,
Mm.
very good
Yeah,
movie.
exactly. Same.
But when Civil War came around, that movie essentially pits Captain America and Iron Man and their separate factions of the Avengers against each other. And what the conflict boils down to, without spoiling, because you haven't seen it and you should
Mm.
watch it, it's a very good movie. It boils down to Captain America being a stubborn bitch and Iron Man being sensible and wanting to change with the times.
Mm.
So that's my very biased synopsis of the plot. It's a movie that I even after watching the first two, even after watching, I just saw the message you sent me.
Yeah,
Even after
so.
watching the first two Captain America movies, I felt more sympathy towards him in the movie, but I still feel that he was being a douche.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
In what, Civil War?
in Civil War.
Okay, well, I haven't seen Civil War,
Yeah.
so I don't really
So, and
know.
the problem I have with it, without spoiling anything, see the you'll see this when you watch the movie, but he he has this just in the very beginning of the movie, like somebody calls him arrogant for his stance on the issue that's the pivotal point of that movie,
Mm.
and calls him just dangerously arrogant, and I think that ends up being true. Like he, through sheer luck, ends up being right. Like, but
I would say the same thing about Iron Man, though.
in some of the okay, what do you mean by that though?
Very arrogant.
Yes,
So much so that it has put people in danger previously.
right.
But he's always been able to fix it, but that's kind of beyond the point.
But here is why I really like him and side with him in this movie, because by the time you get to the Civil War, like Tony Stark is older, he's seen world-ending apocalypses, he's had a lot of other stuff happen, and he's grown so much as like he starts out exactly like that. He's arrogant, he makes brash decisions, he doesn't think he needs everyone, he thinks everyone else is wrong, and he just goes his own way because he can sort things out.
Mm.
And Iron Man 3 is where they first start to kind of explore that idea, and he ends up just basically losing function. Like he has PTSD, he's in rough shape.
Does he?
In Iron Man 3, yeah. He has
This is the one with the amusement park, right?
amusement park. No.
Yeah, when he makes the Stark Industry Park.
Nope, that's Iron Man 2.
Okay. Which
But
one was three?
Iron Man 3 is the one where there is he has a ton of different suits. Like he's made 1 billion Iron Man suits because he can't sleep because he has anxiety attacks.
Right. Is that with Jarvis? Like becoming a. Anyway.
That you think
I'm sure I'll
that's
put that.
Avengers: Age of Ultron. I've watched
Okay.
all of these now, so I know where all
There
the
are too
plot
many
points
bloody
happen.
films.
There really are. I didn't realize how many there were until I started watching them. But I'm getting
Yeah.
lost in the weeds here. By the time you get to Civil War, Tony Stark has he's seen the ramifications of his actions and what happens when he really
evolved.
can't. Exactly. Which is why the movie to me is about somebody who has seen things blow up in his face, seen where arrogance can lead and the danger and the damage that it can cause.
Hmm.
And he's trying to make it right. Whereas Captain America still hasn't seen that happen. And he's still got that dangerous arrogance.
Yeah.
And I would argue that throughout the movie, the whole reason that they're fighting at all is because Captain America, because of that dangerous arrogance, refused to compromise.
I see.
And like he's given every opportunity throughout the movie to compromise, he just doesn't, because he is gonna die on his moral high ground.
Yeah.
And I feel like the movie's plot, it gives him like, it throws him too many bones. Like he, on a hunch, just ends up being right like 2 or 3 times throughout the movie, when it was like a 1 in a million shot that he was actually right. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah. No, I understand what
They,
you
they
mean.
use plot contrivance to kind of make him seem a little bit more sympathetic, rather than
Hmm.
actually exploring the idea that he could go through the same arc as Tony Stark, where,
Yeah, it could go either way.
yeah, his arrogance
Um,
causes problems. Anyway.
I was gonna make it a little bit more recent.
Hmm.
I'm sure you've heard a bit about the Black Widow film that's coming out,
Yeah, I've heard a little bit about it. It's
and it's
supposed to
been
take place.
delayed
Oh, it got delayed. Really?
because of what happened with Milan.
What happened with Milan?
Milan? Oh, no, not Milan. Mulan.
Oh, Mulan. Okay, yeah. I thought you meant the country, Milan.
No, not Milanese people. No. Um,
um. Oh yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
they there's a lot of worry about how it's going to end out because Black Widow is a pretty damn cool character. I don't think anyone can
Yeah.
deny that.
Well,
But what's happened? Wait, hang on. Is it Milan that changed it, or was it the Captain Marvel controversy?
so
There's been a lot of
it may
stress
have been
about
the Captain
female main
Marvel thing.
characters at
So,
the moment.
but so here's my hot take on this.
Okay.
So in between, we're talking about Marvel. In between Infinity War and Endgame, they did a Captain Marvel film, which I think was a terrible decision. Regardless of
Yep.
who the character was, could have been a man, could have been a woman, could have been whatever. Doesn't matter. That was the wrong time to do that movie, because they essentially, every person who saw it was like, they're just retconning something. They're putting a character in, like all these. You said there's way too many of these films. We've had like 12 films to get to know Tony Stark, Captain America, Hulk, Thor, Black
There's been that
Widow,
many.
Hawkeye. There's at least a dozen. Even Spider-Man
No
had a
one cares
couple.
about Hawkeye.
Yeah, well, yeah.
So,
Even Spider-Man had a couple movies to like. But the thing is, but audiences know him because he's been in the movies.
hmm,
But what they did was in the middle of like essentially a two-part movie, because that's what Endgame and Infinity War were. In the middle of a two-part movie, they quickly shoved in a brand new character, who no one knew, had never been introduced. There was just like, and then they just decided like, this character is going to be really important in the last movie. What they
hmm,
should have done,
very powerful.
yeah, what they should have done was do the Black Widow movie then, because that was the height of her popularity. She's probably one of the more popular and I see, after watching Captain America: Winter Soldier, like she is huge in that show. Like, I don't know, she is one of the best characters, and I think one of the most underrated characters in all of the Marvel movies there. So I don't think it has anything to do with the fact that it's like a female lead. I think if they had done her as a female lead, did a Black Widow movie in between those two movies to give her more backstory, that would have been
What
so much better.
what I meant by because it's the female lead, I so Scarlett Johansson
Yeah.
has always been she doesn't have any superpowers. She's not particularly extraordinary. She's not all that talkative. Um, but she is badass, and she is really good at something that she has adapted herself and practiced throughout the years. It's really
Yeah.
the small dog in the fight that has a lot of bite.
She's she is,
Um,
dare I say it, a very well written and well developed character.
yep, and the reason that I brought up the whole femininity thing is because at the moment people are, I would say, kind of fed up with um, female characters being portrayed as uh, a greater species kind of thing. I'm
Like
trying not to get too political here, but
hyper overpowered. I know what you mean.
yeah, because of social standpoints.
Yeah.
Um,
And I
so
Yeah.
It's an unfortunate time for this movie to be released, but I think as long as they don't, uh,
I
as long
I've
as they don't
seen
go
the
into morals on it, I think
yeah.
it'll be an amazing movie.
I've
But
seen
it
the
could go
trailer
either way.
for it. I've seen the trailer for it, and I think it looks really good. Um, so yeah, you're right.
Hmm.
If they don't dig too far into social politics, it'll probably be a really good movie because Black Widow, insanely popular character, loved
Yeah.
her in all of the movies. Like I said, it, she's a character that like how do I put this? Like if a character, it's perfectly fine in a plot if a character is overpowered, but they have to get to that point. You have to
You
show
have to earn
them.
it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. They have to earn it. They have to, go through some kind of a struggle, some kind of a growth pattern. The hero's journey, essentially, but not
Hmm.
necessarily a hero because she's like a spy and an assassin in the movies. But
Yeah.
you have to kind of they have to have something that makes them interesting. The problem with characters uh, yeah, the Captain Marvel is a good example. The problem with her as a character is she didn't earn it. She just like she
No.
starts off the most overpowered and only gets like temporarily limited and then goes back to being the most overpowered.
Yeah, I think I haven't seen the film, but from the clip I keep seeing,
Hmm.
she literally flies through space with no suit on and blows up about a whole army of battleships
She's
just with nothing.
Captain Marvel has the same problem, and we've talked about this on a much earlier podcast, and I've said this multiple times. The reason I hate Superman, I hate Superman for the same reason I hate Captain Marvel as a character. Both
Hmm.
of them are so completely overpowered and did nothing to earn it.
Yeah,
Like
broken, as
they
you would
they
say in a game.
exactly as you'd say in a video game, they're both broken, and there's no skill involved with it. Like Superman, he's just invisible or invisible. He's just invincible. Like he
Yeah,
can fly. He's got the laser beam eyes. He's super strong. He's bulletproof. Like if he
yeah.
just
What
decided
isn't
to,
he?
he could exactly. And it's the same thing with her. Like aside from this a part of the movie where she gets like limited, she is just. I have seen the movie now because I'm going through all of these. I'm committed to watching all of them. Um,
Well, did you get? Okay, now I'll wait.
yeah, yeah. But that's her character. Like she is just she's the Superman of the Marvel universe, and
Hmm.
I dislike both of them for the exact same reason. They are crazy overpowered and did nothing to earn it. That's my final thoughts. Anything else you want to say before we end this segment off?
I was gonna ask quickly. Did you get Disney Plus? Because all the Marvel movies are on there.
I did not, and I wish I had because I've been renting them on Amazon. I've spent like $30.
Because we've been discussing whether you're going to get Disney Plus for a few weeks now, and it's got all the Star Wars, all the
Yeah.
Marvel. It's probably maybe worth getting that.
I
Uh,
probably should because I still have to watch Doctor Strange, Black Panther, Infinity War, and Endgame to finish off my marathon run through all of the movies.
right.
And Ant
Um,
Man, honestly, I wasn't gonna rent that one because I didn't have a whole lot of interest in it.
oh,
But
Ant-Man is actually really
is
good.
it really good? Okay, I'll watch that then.
It's very funny. I find it very funny.
All right,
Once you're in the movie.
maybe I'll get a Disney Plus subscription this week and I'll cancel
Yeah.
it after a month or something like that because I wanted to watch The
Just,
Mandalorian too.
just on my closing thought, to be
Yeah.
extra mean, I'm going to do exactly what I did in the first part
Hmm.
and say, um, the what we've been discussing, how like the best characters are the ones that have no abilities and they start off like you or me, so we can actually imprint ourselves onto them, kind of thing.
Hmm.
That's why when I start a new Dungeons and Dragons campaign, that's why I don't start my characters out at level 5 or something. No, they start out at level 1 and they've got to slog their way through it. Because the funnest moments are when you are not powerful at all. It's when you have to really think to get past a problem, and you can't just be like, fireball.
And then you nuke the forest.
Exactly. So don't give Black Panther a fireball. Not Black Panther.
Black
Black
Widow.
Widow. Wait, is Black Panther called Black Panther, or is he something else?
No, he is called Black Panther. Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's gonna get really fucking confusing.
Wakanda.
Yes, that's my closing thought on Marvel.
Okay. Thank you all for listening. This has been segment 2. Segment 3 coming up today, as Blue alluded to there. I think we're going to be talking about some Dungeons and Dragons a little bit. But stay tuned for that. Otherwise, thank you again for listening.